everyone. My name is Evie Lupine, and today, thanks to Zipper Magazine, we're going to be talking about small penis humiliation, or SPH.
Zipper Magazine.
And if you don't know what that is, it is a very popular form of verbal humiliation in which the receiver has their penis consensually ridiculed, typically due to size. Though this can involve other comments about things like performance or the penis's ability to give pleasure, the main focus is on the size. As I said, this is a very popular form of kink, especially for male submissives. It is all over pornography for male submissives, and it's also a very common offering in pro-dom or dominatrix offerings during sessions. And because of that, the stereotypical view that people have on SPH tends to be something along the lines of it being very cruel and mean and degrading, and that when you go through a session around SPH, it is miserable while it's happening and you feel bad afterwards. You don't really have that positive resolution at the end that you might with some other kinks. And that is certainly a valid way to go about SPH and one version of it, but it's not the only option. I personally think you can also use SPH as a tool for validation, affirmation, and permission giving if you want to do that. It can be a way to use humiliation as a way to get to more positive emotions and have some affirmation. For example, it can be a way to remind someone that their penis isn't the only way that they can provide pleasure to someone. It can also be a reminder that the reason why their partner likes them isn't just because of the package they bring to the table. It can be a reminder to someone that they are a worthy bottom or submissive even without their genitals being part of the equation. And in fact, I think one of the most common reasons why people enjoy SPH is because it can be a way of creating a safe container for mask folk to explore submission in the first place, because of how tied up very many ideals are in masculinity equaling a big, strong, powerful penis that is able to give pleasure on command. And when you erase the penis's ability to do that, when you negate that, and you therefore lose your masculinity, which is seen as synonymous with dominance, you then can more easily, for some people at least, explore a submissive mindset and what it's like to be able to give pleasure to someone and make them happy without your penis necessarily being involved. But keep in mind, any form of body-based humiliation play, especially SPH, can be a very triggering area for some folks. So if you do want to explore this, I always recommend being very cautious and very proactive with your negotiations. Talk about this first. Do not spring this on someone in the middle of otherwise vanilla sex because you think that they might like it. Go slowly, talk about what you want to have happen and what you want to have not happen. I always recommend having very explicit guidelines for what you're aiming for during a scene and some key phrases or topics to avoid. So for example, you might want to have a conversation where you say, hey, it's okay to make fun of my size, but please don't negatively compare me to other past partners. Or it's okay to point out that I'm very short or that my balls look weird, but don't talk about the fact that I'm circumcised or not. So you can have a very detailed conversation about this if you want to, and especially when you're first starting out, I recommend being pretty conservative with those boundaries because you can always make them more relaxed later. But if you have a very negative experience up front, it's going to be time for aftercare. It can be quite difficult after a humiliation play scene to do some of the typical aftercare you might do with a partner, like words of affirmation. So I might recommend, for example, pre-writing out a note your partner can read on their own time about affirming how much you care about them and like them, whatever makes sense for you and your dynamic, so that way they can process that on their own, and when they're ready to receive that information, they can. But outside of a dedicated humiliation play scene, what are some other beginner ways, all the way up to advanced ways, you can play with small penis humiliation? Now, if you're a total beginner, I think the easiest way to start with this is by doing what I would call a mean blowjob. This is basically the same kind of oral sex you might normally be having, but the person who is giving the oral on the person with the penis is mean about it. They're making derogatory comments. They have a scowl on their face. They're acting like they don't really want to be there, and they're disappointed with you for having them do this in the first place. And if you prefer more sexual play, there are lots of other options with this. You can have this be part of a sounding scene, or a chastity scene, or a pegging scene, or an orgasm denial scene as well. You can also do it as part of a service scene or body worship because, hey, if you can't please your partner with your penis, you're gonna have to find some other way to please them, right? It can also be part of a more conventional impact play scene, especially if you're playing more on the front of the thigh. Also receiving the verbal humiliation. And in that case, between each stroke, you might have them say something humiliating about their own penis and force them to be the one to do the humiliation themselves. Have them be creative. If they repeat themselves or they're not humiliating enough for your taste, give them 2 strokes instead of just 1. You can also do this as part of a role play scene. I think this works great with, for example, medical play. Imagine having a beautiful nurse poke and prod you all over. You're totally exposed, completely vulnerable. They're doing all kinds of things with like electrical whirring implements. What's going on? And then on top of all of that, the beautiful nurse is also making fun of your penis. Yeah, that's going to be pretty emotionally intense. And finally, if you're in a long-term power exchange relationship, there are lots of ways to incorporate this with rules, protocol, and structure to go alongside your DS. So for example, you might have a daily protocol where you have to say something humiliating about your penis in writing somewhere, maybe in a text message, on a whiteboard in your house, or leaving a note with your partner. And this can be a good way of inviting a little bit of DS back and forth on a daily basis. You might also have something where, for example, you have body writing you do every day as part of a ritual, where you have to put a humiliating note on yourself somewhere where you remind yourself about how terrible and small and worthless your penis is. And my personal favorite example is when you have to refer to your own penis whenever you talk about it by a humiliating nickname. But those are just some examples of how you can incorporate SPH on a more regular basis in your relationship and with other kinds of play. Once again, thanks to Zipper Magazine for helping me make this video. Please do go ahead and check them out, and hopefully I will see you all again soon. Bye!
Real kink for real people. Brought to you by Sunny Megatron and Clips for Sale.